Hello everyone, this is Pooja again from Simple IT Learnings. Today I'm going to talk about the difference between the black box and the white box testing. So you all know it's a kind of a functional testing, but we will be more talking about uh, what is the difference between black box functional testing and the white box functional testing. So black box, as the name says, it's black, it's blinded. User doesn't know what is going behind the scenes. So user gives the inputs and it gets the outputs. But when the input goes, what happens at the back and what triggers something to come back, he doesn't know anything behind the scenes. In white box testing, user does know what's going behind the scenes. So based on what is going behind the scene, the test cases, the test strategy that he built makes a difference in terms of how they are testing that particular behavior of the system. Generally, white box testing is done by the developers who actually develop the code, and mostly with the unit testing or somebody who understand the code behind, somebody who understand the logic behind. But in this video, I'm going to show some of the white box testing that even a normal tester with some knowledge of the backend can also perform. So you may have seen this example I have given in my other videos also, a simple login screen. Various types of login screen, you give input, you get output, but user doesn't know what is going behind the scene. User doesn't know when he enters the username and the password, what happens behind the scene. So the requirement is user should log into the system by providing a valid and invalid password combination. Test scenario is valid login screen with valid and invalid combination. And user does not know what is the design logic. If you remember my video on test student, how to write test cases, I give emphasis on the design logic because it does make a big difference if you know what's going behind, and if you do not know what's going behind, how you are going to test it. And I will explain this to you using some examples here. So if you remember, like these are some of the basic test cases that you generally write for any login screen validation. Valid user ID with valid password, valid user ID with invalid password, blank user ID and password, and you do all your testing. And generally this is done by the functional tester. It's all the black box testing. Now, some people like who have some skills. So what would be the requirement for the, just think behind the scenes what's going on. So whenever I'm doing my user ID and password, we have to ensure that user ID and password is not stored, like especially the password should not be stored in a place where somebody can go and see what the password is actually. It should be encrypted. Second thing is we have to ensure the date and time stamps are logged. As a tester, as a functional tester, where I do not know what's going on, I would not know whether that login date and time is getting saved behind the scene. So if I have some knowledge of database, generally, as I said, that this type of testing is done by a technical tester, but usually these days people do know the basic SQL. So if you have some basic SQL knowledge, you can do this testing yourself. So you will log into the database and you will go and look into the date and time stamp. So you know how it works. When you give the user ID and password, it's stored somewhere with a date and time stamp. It checks that the user ID is unique, there is no other user ID, and it gives back the output. Yes, it's a valid user ID and password combination. Hey, you go in. So now I know little bit, not a lot, I know a little bit what's going behind the scenes, so I can go and do this testing, which is called a white box testing, or in this case, it's more a back-end testing. So in detail here, like check the database to see the date and time log for login screen. We will open that instance. We will click on the login history table. It should be recorded, generally done by the database testers. The password should be encrypted. User ID should be unique. Now I know when I go in, it looks there. It checks all the records. It says it's a unique and the password combination is valid together. And that's how it gives the output back. My second example I have also used in many other videos is online grocery store, where one of the examples I have given is increasing the price by 10%. So in this case, I know the design logic, as I've said here, this price table will be updated using the SQL statement. So basically this type of changes happen all the time. So we have a table in the database, whenever I give the, there is a front end from which I enter the prices of the each uh, grocery item that gets stored in the database. And whenever I have to update it, either I can do using the front end, or I can just go and update the SQL. And once it is updated there, the customer side gets affected. So one way of doing it, because now I know that it is only getting stored and it is getting updated through the SQL statement, like one of the examples I have used here. So what I can do is I can validate a price in the same table before the change happened, after the change happened, validate the modules where cart logic is calculated, that anything has got changed there, check before and after. The same thing is with the printing module. So this type of testing is generally done by a developer, that they will go. So what happens sometimes is that this type of testing is to ensure that when a developer is going and making any changes, he is not changing anything else other than what is required. By mistake, especially if somebody is new, they can go and update any other module, because these are key modules. So someone will go and check the code and it should remain the same, because we are not making any changes in the text or anything. It's just the price changes which should happen in the before and after state of the price table. If you remember, like if I don't know anything, I just kept it here, that if I do not know anything, then what am I going to do? I'm going to check every single thing. And this is where, like, in order to avoid this thing, sometimes a white box testing helps, where we can simply go and do the testing. I hope this video helped you understand the difference between the black box and the white box testing on a high level. You do understand the difference, who can do that, what type of knowledge you need. If you have any questions, please feel free to send me a note or a comment, or if you would like to hear about another topic, please feel free to drop me a note. I would be more than happy to help you with any topic that you would like to hear about.